Yeah. Well, and it's not that Pennsylvania doesn't offer that. It's just that, I don't necessarily have the access to do it. And to take a step back, I'll comment on my passion being to hunt these mature bucks. Um, it's interesting how everybody has kind of their own journey, like in that direction. It does seem like for a lot of people, that's kind of where it ends up if they're afforded the opportunities along the way. Not everybody ends up there or necessarily like has to get there. It's not like that's the end of it by any means. But um, so I mentioned that my uncle, was a big bow hunter, and he's almost 60 now, and so he had kind of gone through that journey himself, in whatever the 70s, 80s, 90s, I guess even into the early 2000s. He's been kind of figuring that out for himself, and so him being a primary influence for me, I kind of picked up where he left off. Like, dude, I didn't really have a phase where I was like shooting a bunch of basket rack deer, like a lot of guys do. A lot of guys have to kill a lot of deer before they decide that they're like, okay, well, I want to start to increase on that. I want to start, bigger, older deer. For whatever reason, dude, I never had that. Like, the smallest buck, and this is not like not a, I'm not bragging at all. Like, it just is what it is. The smallest deer I've ever shot was like a 2 year old. It was the first buck I ever shot. It was like a 2 year old, 150 inch, like 8 or 9 point, which at the time for
Yeah.
me was giant buck. It was like late November. This deer come trotting up under my stand. It was a complete mess in the standing. And it was one of those things where it was like, I couldn't believe I finally killed, this. I've been hunting for so long. And it probably wasn't until I was, I don't know, 16 or 18 years old. Like, I had hunted years before I successfully shot and killed a buck with my bow. I'd killed like a few other does. My first deer I ever shot was like with a 30-30 Marlin, right? And but so from that 2 year old, um, I was just like, okay, it's got to be bigger. And the next one I shot was several years later, and I probably missed some along the way, blew opportunities and stuff. But from there, I killed like a 130-inch 3 year old, and same feeling. I was like, this is the biggest buck I've ever killed. I remember when it came in, I couldn't believe how big its antlers were. I was like, this is just insane. I killed it at 15 yards, just broadside. He wheeled around me 30 yards and crashed over there, and it was like same feeling. I was just elated with that deer. Um, and I just was like, okay, now, and it continued to progress. So like, there never was a time where I was killing like a whole bunch of deer, and in some ways I suffered from that. It's like I'm not as experienced of a killer as somebody like a Ben Rising, or somebody that came up through that age where it's like, they were just whacking everything. There's guys who get good at killing. And so I maybe suffer a little bit in that regard, but I just, we talked about this a little bit, even just last week with Allie, is like, we were talking about what kind of deer, and Nick, we're trying to harvest. And dude, the reality that like I've kind of faced is that I don't like killing stuff. It kind of, it breaks my heart. It's like, I have so much respect for those animals, all animals. Um, that I just like, I can't bring myself to kill an animal that isn't like, uh, isn't to the standard that I've set out for myself. I'm like, man, if I'm going to bring myself to kill an animal, it really needs to be special. It needs to be what I went out there, to do. And so I try to, like, I guess, I don't know, honor the animal in that way, but it also helps me keep my standard. And so like, I don't have 15, 20 bucks on my wall. But I can tell you, I've passed a lot of deer that a lot of people would have shot.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to do it. I'd rather that animal have another chance, or even if I know the neighbor's going to kill him, I'm fine with it. It's not an animal that I want to kill.
Yeah, and I think it's important to recognize within yourself if you're able to be okay with that. I think some people tell themselves that they're okay with, passing something and then get mad, if they don't at the end of the year and they don't have something, and like especially someone that's getting new into hunting, that can be a deterrent from them to keep going because they don't taste that blood or they don't feel that success, for lack of better terms. But to
Yeah.
be able to do that, but when you have, it sounds like with your mindset, and you were just like determined, like this is what I'm going to do, and I'm setting these standards and I'm holding to it. And I have a ton of respect for you for being able to do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not all it's cracked up to be necessarily. I mean, dude, I've eaten a lot of tags, and like, I've blown a lot of opportunities. And it's just, hunting for me is a lot more failure than it is success. I mean, literally, dude, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, I've maybe killed in my entire career. And again, I'm 30 years old, and I've had some great opportunities to hunt out of state. Um, like maybe 5 deer over 4 years old.
Yep.
And, the reality is has been my standard. I was like, I'm not gonna kill something that I don't think is 4 years old or older. And even today, I'm passing some 4 year olds, and I want to see these deer at 5 years old. Um, and it's totally okay. Like if people aren't doing that, I just, uh, it just is what it is. I just don't want to kill 3 year old deer. And anymore, I'm like, I just don't want to kill four. I think the end of that, like, and I kind of answered it earlier, is like, I just don't want to kill deer unless it's the one.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's important to recognize, like you were saying. And what was you guys had done a podcast with somebody, and I apologize, I don't remember the name of the guest, but they were talking about the actual statistics of people that shoot
Oh
mature
yeah,
deer.
Ryan Furr. Yeah.
Yeah, what was that statistic? Because it was really wild to me.
Uh,
Do you
Something
remember?
like less than 15 or 25% of all deer hunters will ever kill a deer over 125 inches or something like that.
Yeah,
Which I'm not 100% sure if that stat is correct or not, but I mean, sounds right.
yeah. Yeah, and it is wild, but just showing like how difficult it is to hunt, mature animals and have those opportunities. Like it's hard. I mean, I spend a lot of time in the woods, and now yeah, I'm sure different locations and everything's a little bit different, but like I spend a lot of time in the woods to have a couple opportunities a year at something that is a mature animal.
Yeah, it's all relative, right? And so like
Yeah.
what you and I think is a lot of time, or what you and I think is like a good area, like the reality is, like if you go out to the Midwest during a rifle season, like if you don't kill a 125-inch deer, like your eyes are closed, like they're everywhere. Like it's the easiest thing, it's easy. Not necessarily the case here in Pennsylvania. It's the age structure is just, there's here in Pennsylvania, there's way more hunters. We have like the second or third highest hunter density in the entire country. The average private land parcel size is smaller than it would be if you go out to Ohio, or the further Midwest you go, the bigger tracts of land you get. All that weighs into age structure and ultimately antler size and opportunity. So in Pennsylvania, um, that statement's not necessarily true. It might be pretty challenging to go out even with a rifle to kill a 125-inch deer. There just aren't as many of them. There's more people out there hunting them. So it's all relative. But I've realized that, and I'm not one of those guys who's like, I just want to kill the best deer I can with what I have. I want to expand what I have. I want to work hard to kill the biggest deer that I can. And if that means, traveling out of state to do it, um, or whatever, like within the bounds of what I feel is ethical, that's what I'm going to do.